Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, June 8th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside will feature a high of 82.3 degrees today with a low of 61.5 degrees, so make sure to plan accordingly. On today's program, we are examining the status of the Middle East as regional tensions reach a breaking point following the 100-day mark of the conflict. We will also take a look at how Apple intends to reinvent its business operations through a significant pivot toward artificial intelligence under new leadership. Beyond these major stories, we have a variety of other reports from around the world to keep you informed. It is all coming your way on Alex's News, so please stay tuned. Good morning. We're starting with a story that's reshaping the world this hour. Israel and Iran are trading missiles again, and the ceasefire between them appears to be in pieces. Our reporter Ethan has been tracking this all night. Ethan, what are we looking at this morning?
Grace, today marks the 100th day of what's now being called the 2026 Iran War. Israel and Iran are in a direct exchange of fire, and that 2-month ceasefire brokered back in April has effectively collapsed. Overnight, Israeli warplanes hit targets deep inside Iran, while Iranian missiles and Hezbollah rockets struck back. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, this is the most dangerous moment since the war began.
Take us back to the beginning. How did this war actually start?
It began on February 28th with a joint U.S.-Israeli offensive codenamed Operation Epic Fury. Encyclopedia Britannica reports that nearly 900 strikes were carried out in just 12 hours, targeting Iranian missile sites, air defenses, and leadership. The most stunning outcome was the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in that opening salvo. That single event upended Iran's entire chain of command overnight.
And that triggered a real scramble at the top in Tehran, didn't it?
It did. Mojtaba Khamenei was appointed supreme leader in early March. Ali Larijani had been serving as the de facto leader after the initial strikes, but he was killed on March 17th and replaced by Mohammad Bagher Zolgadersh. So in a matter of weeks, Iran went through 3 different power centers, which made any kind of coherent diplomatic response extremely difficult.
What do we know about the human cost so far?
It's staggering. Per CBS News and the Iranian Health Ministry, official Iranian casualties stand at approximately 3,468 dead and 26,500 wounded. But independent monitors, including Al Jazeera, estimate the actual death toll exceeds 6,000. Millions have been displaced across both Iran and Lebanon, and the humanitarian agencies on the ground say they simply cannot keep up.
There was a ceasefire in April. Walk us through how that fell apart.
Pakistan brokered the ceasefire on April 8th, and for a few weeks it actually held. But Encyclopedia Britannica reports that direct negotiations in Islamabad collapsed in early May. Those talks were between U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. After they broke down, President Donald Trump ordered the U.S. Navy to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, and that's really where everything started unraveling.
A naval blockade is a serious step. Some scholars are calling it an act of war.
That's right. International legal scholars, citing the San Remo Manual, have noted that a naval blockade itself constitutes an act of war. What you have now is a dual blockade scenario, where the U.S. interdicts Iranian trade while Iran obstructs the strait in retaliation. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War argue that's why the missile launches we saw last night aren't really unprovoked ceasefire violations. They're being read as a response to the ongoing blockade.
So what actually lit the fuse this weekend?
The immediate trigger came on Sunday, June 7th. NPR reported that Hezbollah fired rockets into northern Israel, and Israel responded with heavy airstrikes against Hezbollah strongholds in the Dahiyah district of Beirut. Lebanon's health ministry says those strikes killed 2 people and injured 20, including women and children. That set off a chain reaction that played out over the next 24 hours.
And Iran answered directly?
Yes. Late Sunday night, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, launched a barrage of ballistic missiles at Israel. According to NPR and Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Yakil, later, Iran fired at least 11 ballistic missiles, though some reports put that number as high as 30. They targeted 3 military air bases, 2 in central Israel and 1 in the north. The Israeli military says it intercepted most of them, but debris ignited brush fires and sent millions of Israelis into shelters.
Israel hit back hard this morning. What did that look like?
Early Monday, Israel launched what it's calling Operation Nasser, involving dozens of warplanes. According to CBS News and NPR, the strikes hit several strategic nodes. In Tehran, explosions were reported near the Foreign Ministry building, and Iran has since shut down Imam Khomeini International Airport. In Isfahan, Israel targeted radar sites and air defense batteries, specifically aiming to dismantle the S-400 and Bavar 373 systems.
And there was a significant strike on Iran's energy infrastructure, too?
A major one. In Mashhad, Israel hit the Karun petrochemical complex. Workers were evacuated, and no casualties have been reported. But Fars news agency confirmed what they're calling partial destruction of industrial units used to produce components for ballistic missiles. So Israel is going directly after Iran's ability to manufacture the missiles being fired at it, not just the launchers.
This isn't just a two-country fight anymore. What about the proxies?
That's a really important point. On Monday, the Houthis in Yemen fired missiles toward Tel Aviv. Sirens went off, but there's no reported damage. The Houthis have also declared a total ban on Israeli maritime navigation in the Red Sea, which brings back the shipping disruptions we saw between 2023 and 2025. And CBS News reports that the U.S. military shot down 2 Iranian attack drones on June 6th that were threatening traffic in the Strait of Hormuz.
There's also reporting about real tension between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. What's going on there?
This may be the most consequential storyline of all. Axios and NPR report that Trump has forcefully demanded Israel refrain from further retaliation. Trump said, quote, "I call the shots," end quote, and added, quote, "Netanyahu doesn't call the shots," end quote. Axios and CNN describe what they call a blazing row between the two leaders on Sunday, with Trump allegedly describing Netanyahu's persistence in the war as, quote, "effing crazy," end quote.
What's driving Trump's frustration right now?
Analysts point to domestic pressure, including the upcoming U.S. midterm elections and gas prices already exceeding $4.20 per gallon. But the Institute for the Study of War suggests something more strategic may be going on, what they call a strategic decoupling. That's where the U.S. plays diplomatic good cop publicly while still providing the CENTCOM intelligence and air defense support that makes Israeli strikes possible. So the public split may not match the private coordination.
Let's talk about the economy. Markets must be reacting.
They are, and not gently. Brent crude jumped 5% to approximately $97.70 per barrel today. West Texas Intermediate rose to $94.70. Market analysts warn that a total closure of the Strait of Hormuz could push prices past $120. CBS News also reports that the U.S. Treasury Department, led by Scott Bessent, is preparing to use seized Iranian assets to help Gulf allies recover from infrastructure damage caused by Iranian strikes on Bahrain and Kuwait.
Despite all this fighting, there's still diplomacy happening behind the scenes?
Yes, and that's one of the more remarkable threads here. U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have been meeting with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in locations like Muscat and Islamabad. On June 4th, the envoys actually consulted with nuclear experts at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory to finalize technical parameters for monitoring Iran's uranium stockpile. So even with missiles flying, the back channel is very much alive.
And there are still Americans being held inside Iran?
6 of them, that we know of. The U.S. is tracking them, including Reza Velizadeh and Kamran Hekmati, who are designated as wrongfully detained. Trump claims a deal is, quote, within reach, end quote. but Iranian officials have publicly stated that current talks are focused solely on ending the war, not on nuclear concessions. So the families of those Americans are watching all of this with enormous anxiety this morning.
Ethan, before we let you go, what should viewers be watching for in the next 24 hours?
Watch the Strait of Hormuz first, because that's where oil prices live or die. Watch whether Israel launches another wave despite Trump's objections. And watch Tehran's airspace, because Imam Khomeini International Airport being shut tells you Iran is bracing for more. Schools are closed in Israel, airports shut in Iran, and the diplomatic channels are scrambling to prevent this 100-day war from becoming something far worse.
Critical reporting on a fast-moving story. Ethan, thank you for breaking it all down for us this morning. And now to our second big story of the morning, a seismic shift over at Apple. Yesterday's Worldwide Developers Conference wasn't just another product launch, it marked the end of an era in Cupertino. For more on what happened, we're joined by our tech reporter, Chloe. Chloe, good morning.
Good morning, Grace. Yeah, this was a huge one. Analysts at Bloomberg, the New York Times, and Tech Radar are all calling it the most pivotal moment for Apple since the original iPhone debut. And that's not hyperbole, because Apple essentially announced a new CEO, a new operating system, and a brand new AI partnership, all in one keynote. It's a lot to unpack.
Let's start with the leadership change. Tim Cook is stepping down?
He is, and the moment was deeply emotional, according to both NPR and ABC News. Cook opened the keynote with a 15-year retrospective of his tenure at the Steve Jobs Theater. He confirmed he'll transition to the role of executive chairman on September 1st, just under 3 months from today. And in his final one more thing, he said, quote, "Apple has always lived at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. Today, we bridge that gap with a mind of its own." End quote.
So who's taking the reins? I thought it was supposed to be Jeff Williams.
That was the long-running assumption, yes, but Williams actually retired back in November of 2025 to join the board of the Walt Disney Company, according to Forbes. The new CEO is John Ternus. He's a 25-year Apple veteran who was senior vice president of hardware engineering, and he's widely credited with leading the company's transition to Apple Silicon. So this is very much a hardware-minded leader, taking over at a moment when software and AI are front and center.
And speaking of AI, the big reveal was a new version of Siri. Tell us about that.
This is where things get really interesting, Grace. Apple unveiled Siri 2.0, and Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, along with Mac Rumors, are reporting that Apple has made a historic strategic pivot. They've licensed a custom 1.2 trillion parameter Gemini model directly from Google. The deal reportedly costs Apple $1 billion annually, and it essentially lets Apple bypass its own internal, AJAX, models, which have been struggling. So Apple, the privacy company, is now running on Google's AI brain.
That's a stunning admission for Apple. What can this new Siri actually do?
Quite a lot, honestly. It's built on what's called a mixture of experts architecture, so it only activates the parameters it needs for each query, which keeps things fast. The headline feature is what Apple calls agentic capabilities, meaning Siri can chain together app-to-app tasks. So you could ask it to find a flight receipt in your email, book a ride to the airport, and notify your family of your arrival, all in a single command. It also has long-term memory now, so it remembers family names and dietary preferences across conversations.
What about that camera feature I've been hearing about?
That's called visual intelligence, and it's baked into a redesigned camera app. You can point your phone at a bike chain and get repair instructions, or at a nutrition label and have it automatically log the data into the health app. Siri also now lives inside the dynamic island, and you summon it with a new center swipe gesture. The look is dark with what Apple is calling liquid glass accents.
Liquid glass. That's also the name for the new operating system design, right?
Exactly, Grace. iOS 27 is being called the liquid glass era. According to Tom's Guide in Tech Times, Apple is actually moving away from the traditional grid of icons we've all known for almost 20 years. They're replacing it with what they call intent blocks. These are dynamic widgets that surface based on your schedule and context throughout the day. So your phone essentially reshuffles itself, depending on what you're doing.
That's a massive change in how people will use their phones. Are the basic gestures different too?
They are, and this might take some getting used to. The notification center now lives on a left side swipe, and notifications actually slide in from the left side of the screen. Control Center moved to a right side swipe. There's also a new system-wide tool called Search or Ask that replaces Siri suggestions and acts as a central hub for any query you have. And interestingly, there's new split-view multitasking that's been optimized for screens that bend, which sort of hints at where the hardware is going next.
Hardware was part of this announcement too. What did they show?
Yes, there's a new A20 Pro chip with a dedicated privacy sandbox specifically for AI processing. The full Siri 2.0 experience requires an iPhone 15 Pro or newer. And Apple also announced the Vision Pro Air, which is a lighter version of their spatial computer priced at $1,499. It's designed to act as the eyes for Siri 2.0, so you can imagine wearing it while the AI sees and processes the world around you.
And for the Pro users, anything special there?
A couple of standout features. Final Cut Pro got a Magic Director feature for generating B-roll footage, and Xcode AI now functions as a pair programmer for developers. On the Apple Watch side, Health Proactive can apparently predict potential illnesses up to 48 hours before symptoms appear. So Apple is really leaning into the AI angle across its entire product line.
Now I have to ask, because Apple has built its brand on privacy, how do they reconcile that with sending data to Google?
That's the question everyone had, and Apple addressed it head-on with something called Private Cloud Compute 2, or PCC2. As reported by CNN and Cloudflare, Apple claims its infrastructure is, quote, mathematically incapable, end quote, of sharing user data with Google. Every query is wrapped in what they call a cryptographic evidence package, using RSA blind signatures and oblivious HTTP. The data is processed on NVIDIA Blackwell B200 chips inside a hardened operating system that has no persistent storage at all.
That sounds technical. Is there any way for outsiders to verify it?
That's actually the interesting part. Apple has released what's called a virtual research environment that lets third-party auditors verify these claims independently. So they're not just asking us to trust them, they're inviting scrutiny. Whether security researchers find holes in it remains to be seen, but it's a significant transparency move. And it's clearly meant to head off the obvious criticism about partnering with an advertising company.
There is also some legal context behind this Google deal, wasn't there?
Yes, and this is fascinating. The shift to Google's technology follows a massive $250 million settlement in a class action lawsuit called Landschaft versus Apple Inc. The Guardian and CNET covered this extensively. The suit accused Apple of false advertising over Siri features they had promoted during the iPhone 16 launch, but never fully delivered. Analysts now suggest the $1 billion Google deal was essentially an outsourcing of risk, a way to finally fulfill those past promises without relying on Apple's own struggling models.
And not everyone around the world will get the same experience, correct?
That's right, the rollout is uneven. Particularly in India, Phone Arena and Indian Express report that users with iPhone 12, 13, and 14 models in India will only get a limited version of iOS 27. It's being described as a snow leopard-style update focused on stability and thermal management, rather than AI features. This is tied to India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023 and the 2026 IT Rule Amendments, which have strict data residency and AI labeling requirements that Siri 2.0's architecture is still being refined to meet.
And some older phones are being left behind entirely?
They are. The iPhone 11 and the iPhone SE second generation are both ineligible for iOS 27 at all. So if you're holding one of those, this update cycle is the end of the road. Full Siri 2.0, again, requires an iPhone 15 Pro or newer, so even some recent phones won't get the headline features. It's one of the more aggressive support cutoffs we've seen from Apple in a while.
It really does feel like the end of one era and the start of another. Any final image from the keynote that stuck with you?
Just one, Grace. As the keynote ended, Tim Cook stood alone on stage with an image of himself and Steve Jobs projected behind him. His departure closes out a $4.5 trillion era at Apple, and he's handing a transformed AI-native company over to John Ternus. It really was a moment.
A remarkable handoff. Chloe, thank you so much for walking us through all of it this morning.
Anytime, Grace. Good to be with you.
Here are some other headlines. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the coast of Sarangani province in the southern Philippines at 7:37 a.m. today, shaking residents awake with a truly groundbreaking disaster. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council and the Office of Civil Defense confirmed 19 fatalities, 16 in the Sargan region and 3 in the Davao region, while more than 200 others are nursing injuries. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology reported the tectonic quake originated from the Cotabato Trench at a depth of 33 kilometers, making quite a splash with 1.4-meter tsunami waves in Sarangani and Sultan Kudarat before warnings were lifted. In General Santos City, things have really fallen through, with property losses estimated at 1 billion pesos. Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Vince Dizon highlighted the collapse of commercial buildings and severe damage to St. Elizabeth Hospital. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has put a pause on learning, suspending classes for 3,200,000 students across Mindanao on what was to be their first day of school. Director Teresito Bacocol warns aftershocks will keep things moving for weeks, so don't be too quick to return to shaky structures. Across the ocean, the Africa CDC is tracking an Ebola outbreak in Central Africa moving at an unprecedented pace, leaving health officials feeling the strain. The Democratic Republic of the Congo recorded 515 confirmed cases and 91 deaths from the rare Bundibugyo strain. This virus is a tough nut to crack since there are no approved vaccines or therapeutics, and it has already crossed borders into Uganda with 19 cases and 2 deaths. The World Health Organization and Africa CDC launched a $518 million response plan for this public health emergency of international concern. United States health officials are stepping up travel screenings for those from the Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan, committing over $200 million to keep the virus from catching a flight to North American shores. Without aggressive intervention, modeling suggests we could see 20,000 cases. Containment is currently a shot in the dark, due to regional conflict hindering isolation protocols through November 2026. In Portugal, things took a right turn, as far-right leaders gathered in Figueira da Foz for the second annual Remigration Summit to coordinate the mass expulsion of minorities. The meeting, organized by the Reconquista movement, featured former United States Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, who praised American deportation tactics. Alongside activists like Martin Sellner and Jared Taylor, the group pushed the Save Europe Act, a legal initiative by Eva Vlardingerbroek that has already collected over 100,000 signatures. While Minister Luis Neves kept a close eye on the proceedings with security forces, the event signaled a major shift in migration discourse, as parties like Germany's AfD, Spain's Vox, and Portugal's Chega bring extremist theories into the mainstream. In a move that is sure to be a playground hit, the American Academy of Pediatrics released its first update on school recess in 13 years. They are calling for a minimum of 20 minutes of daily unstructured play, insisting that recess is a necessary break and not just a fun diversion for students. Lead author Dr. Robert Murray says the brain needs this time to process and store information, so teachers should stop being party poopers. The guidance explicitly advises against withholding recess for punishment. With 40% of districts having cut playtime to prioritize standardized testing, states like Illinois and South Carolina are already using these medical standards to play ball with new legislation for the 2026 through 2027 school year. Finally, Japan is trying to get a grip on the future at the Humanoid Summit Tokyo 2026. Honda Motor Company showed off a 4-fingered robotic hand, dexterous enough to thread needles and manipulate tiny bolts, proving they have a real finger on the pulse of innovation. As Japan faces an existential labor shortage, Digital Minister Hisashi Matsumoto warns the country must not become an AI colony to Chinese competitors like Booster Robotics and Limex Dynamics. To stay ahead, the government is updating data protection laws to speed up training, while Toyota and Honda focus on high-precision avatar systems to maintain their mechanical edge. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.6, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.